Christ is risen.
He is risen indeed.
A mother got down on her knees to be on the floor with her two little children. And she said to them, I'm going to leave. I'm going to leave for a while, and you can't come with me. But don't worry, I've taken care of everything. You're going to be just fine. And later I'll come back and we'll be together again. Okay? How do you think that went? There are two things going on with that kind of announcement. In the mother's heart, there's a goal. She wants to comfort. She wants to soothe. She wants to see her kids coping and knowing that they're going to get through this. So she's going to work with her words to surround them. Maybe you don't know all the details, but I have. I've looked into it. You're going to be just fine. But you know what the kids are doing? It's a completely other fight. It's a totally different battle. They don't like this story. Well, where are you going to go? How far away is it? Are we going to get to come and see you? Are you going to come back sooner? Who's going to take care of us? And please don't say Dad. So on and on she goes to soothe and calm, and on they go, and peppering her with these questions, and there kind of no resolution. You could see how this would carry out and be troubling. It's so good for us to revisit Holy Week for, 7 weeks of Easter celebration, because we get to go back at all the different times surrounding Easter and see the glory that is there and see what is in our mother's voice, our Savior's voice as he speaks to us. Today we go to John 14. This is Jesus still in the upper room with his disciples. It's right before their greatest trouble ever. Their shepherd says, I'm leaving. The shepherd, the master, these disciples have made 3 years of following him. And now he's gone. This is now the living nightmare, or the impending nightmare for the sheep that is falling on their ears. How should Jesus prepare them? Isn't it great to go to these moments and see, what does God say before my great trouble, before my highest grief, before the worst things my eyes would ever see? What would he say? How would he prepare them? What battle does he fight? Does Jesus go and say to them, you know what? I've told you about a betrayer. And I've got a plan. Let's get tactical about this. Judas and, the mob, they're going to come through this part into Gethsemane. So I know this because I'm God. So we can set up a decoy, here we are praying over here, but really we'll set an ambush with our daggers and our swords on the other side, and we'll totally ambush them. It'll be great. We'll catch them by surprise, and we'll be rid of our enemies. Was Jesus scared of the story? Does he say, let's fight that battle? Does he not say, can I not call on more than 12 legions of angels and summon them to protect me at once? And he says it as he hands over his wrists to be bound and led away. Does he say, all right, disciples, this is getting serious. I'm going to be on trial before Pontius Pilate tomorrow. And there's going to be a moment where he's going to take me back for some private questioning. We'll be a little bit secluded. If 2 of you start a commotion in the crowd and distract the soldiers, the other of you can be on this rooftop and come in the windows through some ropes, and I can get out, and you guys wait for some horses over here, and we'll all jump and ride off into the sunset together. Does he fight that battle? This is a no, Pilate, you can't touch my Jesus. We got to get out of here. Jesus, I like that plan. He doesn't. He says, Pilate, you would have no authority over me if it weren't given to you from above. And then he takes the sentence to be crucified on himself. Jesus isn't intimidated by any part of the woe is us story. He's not scared by any of the troublesome details that come along with laying down his life for sinners. This is his story, right? Is this not his story? He's all over the story. He is the story. He's not scared by the story. He's fighting a different battle. He's fighting for your comfort. He's fighting for your peace. It's the battle that we believe. Do you know why this is what Jesus had to do with his disciples in the upper room? Do you know why he has to fight this fight of don't let your hearts be troubled? It's because Jesus wasn't big enough yet. I know this sounds strange. After watching him feed the 5,000 and raise Lazarus from the dead and walk on the water, and they say the words, "You have the words of everlasting life, and truly you are the Son of God," and they are awed by his power, miracle after miracle and word after word. Does he not have wisdom? Where has come this authority in his life? They've had this for 3 years now, but Jesus was still too small. Don't you think that if they saw God in Jesus, the creator of all things, that they wouldn't worry about what Judas is about to do to him? They're not going to worry about what kind of finger the chief priests are going to lift against Jesus, or what sentence Pontius Pilate could give, because he's God. I'm pretty sure he can handle this one. I'm sure he flips the nations like pancakes, and we don't need to be afraid of what people are going to do to our God. He's going to work it all out. Let's not sweat the story. We have God. But that's not them, is it? Jesus wasn't big enough yet. They were still learning how to make enough out of Jesus. They were still scared of the chief priests and imprisonment. Isn't it a night and day thing when we read in our first reading today what Peter does as he goes on trial himself? He doesn't run this time from trial, does he? But after the resurrection of Jesus and filled with the Spirit, there he is. And they did everything they could to intimidate him. You've got the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the captain of the guard all together against Peter in that Acts chapter 4 trial. And the whole high priestly family, we're told, is gathered together, intimidation tactics against Peter. We're going to threaten you out of this. All right, tell us by what power you've done this. And Peter, is he against persecution? Is he against imprisonment? Is he scared of suffering and he's got to do whatever it takes to get out of it? Not at all. The only battle he fights is the battle to believe. I know you want me to say I did this miracle by someone else's name, but it's not. It's Jesus. And he's the only name given to men by which we can be saved. Please, please come to Jesus. Please be saved. That's the only battle he fights. Do you see where the battle is? Do you see where the battle is? Listen to these words of our Savior, the first of this chapter. Do not let your heart be troubled. Send in the soldiers to your soul to protect, to defend. If it's not in line with my God, if it doesn't agree with what God says in his word, if it doesn't agree with what Jesus has done on the cross, then get it out of here. Then put it to death. It doesn't belong in this heart. Do not let your hearts be troubled. Believe in God. Believe also in me. Do you see where the battle is? Our battlegrounds are around us all the time. Well, at least we make them that way. Any worry that you have is a battle you're trying to fight, and you're fighting it with worry. Any fear you have for your future, for your children, for your family, for your loved ones, is all a battle you are fighting, and you're battling it very weakly with fear. As fear drives you to need this and to have that and to make this kind of progression through life, whatever vision you cast or whatever thing you lament that you don't have, and if only I had it, then I'd be blessed. All of these things, this whole picture, this whole canvas of life that you paint is often driven by fears. The battleground is not what the MRI says. The battleground is not picking the petals of the flower. Does he love me or does he love me not? Or will she say yes? The battleground is not my ACT score and am I going to get accepted into that college. The battleground is not, does that pregnancy test say positive or negative? The battleground is not accomplishment. The battleground is not the degree. The battleground is not having that secure, finally, not the year-to-year changing job, temporary thing. I need that. I just can't wait for I have to have this long-term career laid out in front of me. That's not the battleground, but we sweat over all of it. We wring our hands. How is this going to go? Where will it end up? And we wage battle with fear and worry, really limply, weakly. Nothing more than ourselves. Do not let your hearts be troubled. You trust in God. Trust also in me. Jesus says, can I sweat this one out for you? In fact, there's a marriage that's happening here. With everything that Jesus is about to do, he's calling them to imitate the faith that they have in the invisible God. You know, if something bad happens, do you still trust in God? I mean, come on, Job, you still trust in God? So apply that to me, that wherever I go and whatever I do, you see God doing his thing. That however lowly it looks and however awful it seems, however troubling it may be, you see God doing his thing. Just as you trust in God and say, he's got this, so when my hands go to the cuffs and the nails go into my wrist, you say, Jesus has got this. He's doing his thing for us. Can I sweat this one out for you? Can I sweat out death for you? Can I sweat out the hell? Can I take the curse? Can I suffer the blows? Can I conquer the world? Can I do all of these things for you? This is my gift to you. I am so big. Believe in God. Believe also in me, just like that. The only battle we have left is don't let your hearts be troubled. My gift is so big. The only battle that remains is to believe it. And Jesus leans back in the upper room. Talk about preparation for anything. And he lifts his eyes and shares the undisturbed vision. In my Father's house are many rooms. Oh, and we disciples, we want those details. We're like the little kids saying, Jesus, you said you're going to leave us. Stop talking about the house. Tell me more about tomorrow. Come on back, Jesus. What universe, what planet are you on right now? In my Father's house are many rooms. How does this apply to anything we're talking about? Can he take you there? Is it safe? Or do you need him to tell you more about tomorrow first? In my Father's house are many rooms, he just keeps going. If it were not so, I would tell you. I would tell you if the room is small, or if there's not very many, and the only people going to heaven are the brightest and the best, so you better sweat it out and be the brightest and the best. No, in my Father's house are many rooms because I'm preparing it, because I'm taking it. I'm making it. It has to do with my name, and I go to this cross for you and for you and for you and for you and for you, so that there's a room for you and for you and for you and for you and for you. Regardless of what you've done, regardless of your failings, regardless of your scatterings, you don't have to let your hearts be troubled by anything that you do, disciples, because your trust is in me, and I embrace it all. In my Father's house are many rooms, because I can tell you this. I'm going to make it so. I'm going to prepare it so. This is what I'm about to do. Can you believe that he describes the next anguished 72 hours, the worst of the worst for the disciples, as simply and as danger-free as, I'm going to go build a house for you, and then I'll come back and take you to be with me. Does it sound too easy? Isn't life hard, Jesus? Isn't it it's just painful on every side. We've got all these things we need to worry about, and you're just all relaxed, and you're painting the story with a totally different brush. I'm going to go prepare a place for you, and then I'll come back and take you to be with me. Sound good? Does it sound good? Is this not good news? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. But Thomas chimes in, I've got a question. I like the I for you thing and the building us a house. But you left out details, Jesus. Okay, my tomorrow needs to get prettier than it is today. It's been really hot in this Jerusalem, heated with the pressure of all these people. We told you this was a dangerous place. Let's get out of here. Let's go to a getaway house. I like this idea, but you haven't told us where it is. Is it somewhere in the desert on the other side of the Jordan? Where are you going? Go build a house? This is like we do with weddings these days, right? The disciples could say, the guy goes off and builds a house, and then he brings his bride, and we all celebrate. Just tell us what hill it's on, Jesus. He still needs his tomorrow. He's still thinking small of Jesus. And if only we could just have this. And how big is it what Jesus aims to give him? To give him God. Jesus gets up from the table after Thomas' question, and he passes the window like he's going to point and say, all right, the house is over that hill. But he passes the window and the next window, and he goes back to his seat and sits down. You want to know the way? I am the way. I am the way and the truth and the life. God has written a really beautiful story for you. He's always had in mind the forgiveness of sins and paradise and life eternal. And he's channeled it all here in me. That you would see your God take all the bad. That nothing in your story would be touched by the evil one. I know how to crush that head of the serpent. I know how to deal with the hatred of the nations. I know how to bring my plan to fruition. And from eternity, God has written a very beautiful story that all of these pretty things and all of these good things would be bound and tied to this, to me. From now on, in fact, time to make me really big. Think of me in no other way. From now on, you know the Father, and you've seen him. And he just got really big, but Philip says, no, I won't let you. Hey, Jesus, that would be really great. You mentioned seeing the Father. Can we see the Father? And he still belittles Jesus as if only we could see the Father, then life would be nice. If only the Father were here to care for us, then we would be shepherded through everything. Then would be enough, Philip says. Enough for what? Enough for a trouble-free life? Enough not to doubt anymore? Enough to know? Enough for what, Philip? Philip, don't you know that the Father is in me? And I am in the Father? You need to redefine your God who has entered all the troubling parts of your life, and he has rescued you from them so that you can claim the name Jesus every single time. That little finger you're pointing to Philip points to heaven to say, show us the Father, show us the Father. Jesus grabs it, and once again, here he is. I'm right here. Do not let your hearts be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. Maybe many of you grew up like I did. Maybe you didn't. Baptized and raised learning that Jesus was God. Going to Sunday school classes or Bible classes or Christian education, or maybe it was Bible information class, but you're learning from the beginning that Jesus is God. Isn't it interesting that Jesus is teaching his disciples to have the faith that you do? The disciples who spent 3 years in ministry with him were stuck with his flesh and blood as a barrier to the fullness of God that was sitting at the table with him. Jesus says, believe in me like you believe in God. The very thing that we've been teaching here at Grace for 168 years, the very thing that Christians have passed on since the time of the apostles, that Jesus is truly the Son of God, is ours. So that Jesus can say, I am the way, and we could say, I know him. And I know his love, and I know what he's done, and I know where he's been. I know that, Jesus. I dare you to find something in life to worry about that's outside the Son of God. Let's try a different battle. a really fun one. The battle that is, do not let your hearts be troubled. You believe in God. Believe also in me. Amen.